What's up, YouTube? Before I head out for today, I wanted to pop out this quick video because I wanted to give a breakdown. I wanted to give a numerical breakdown of the classes and the tiers just so people realize how greatly the odds are stacked against them. I made several videos in the past where I talk about how it's impossible tier, it's impossible difficulty for men and beyond impossible difficulty for women. This specific chart doesn't break it down by gender or doesn't break it down by sex or any of the other micro classes. This is just a general macro chart of my estimates for each of the classes because I've had people comments boldly claiming that they're at the highest tier. You know, it's the Dunning-Kruger effect when they don't understand why they'll never be at that tier and exactly how impossible it is for them to even reach B tier, let alone the classes that nobody sees. And the main reason I wanted to make this video is because there's a lot of people, especially online, that like to talk out of their asses about matters that they just have zero knowledge on. You see this with theology, you see this with how the world runs, and you see this with society. Back in the day, people that talked out of their asses, they got bullied, right? They were immediately told that they were wrong, and if they continued to display narcissism, they usually got beaten up, thrown into a trash can, their lunch money taken, their shoes taken, the whole 9 yards. Back in the day, society had checks and balances to keep narcissism and delusionalism at bay. Now, you still had a lot of narcissistic people. I don't think that the number of people with narcissism has risen, but even though they don't like to admit when they're wrong, even though they don't like to admit to their flaws, they're not suicidal. So people that have anti-personality disorders, they think more with the reptilian brain. And what's the reptilian brain specifically about? Self-preservation, survival, and doing what you believe is best for you. I got a whole video where I cover that. In modern society, where nobody holds anybody accountable, these types of people feel a lot more confident that they can just say and do whatever they want because they already don't think that they're wrong, and nobody really tells them that they're wrong anymore anyways. That's the absolute bottom of the hierarchy. Okay, those are the people that are in the D tier. Now, when you're doing average percentages, generally speaking, the B and the D tier will have around the same number. So like in World of Tanks, the worst players and the best players, they're both in like the 0.01 percentile, right? The reason that this is like a special exception because how human society runs is drastically different than how, fictional video games are ran. So I wanted to just break down the numbers and I wanted to cover each tier in a little bit more detail, okay? Now, you guys notice that both in this picture and in the previous picture that I used, the first video I made talking about the classes, you notice that S tier is at the top and at the bottom. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of free lunch because those that get it, they already understand the purpose of that. But those that don't get it, they're never going to understand it. But for the sake of just explaining how stacked the odds are against you guys and how perfected this game has become, you guys need to hear this explanation for the rest of this to make sense. So, you learn the truth one of two ways. You either observe from other people's experiences and you put 2 and 2 together from other people's failures, or you experience the failure and you see the truth the hard way. Now, the reason why S tier is at the top and then at the bottom is because this is like the polar opposite of each other. You basically either learn the truth while you're alive and you slowly become a master of the game, or you just stay content at either the B and A tiers, right? You basically learn the truth while you're alive and you ascend, Or you fail your entire life and then you learn the truth only after death. But if you're already dead, the truth can't help you in the first place. So you either learn the truth while you're alive or you learn the truth when you're dead, right? And then in the middle, you have the rest of the tiers, okay? Now, understand something, right? Out of the 8 billion people on the planet that we're told that's on the planet, right? Because who can really verify that number with 100% factuality? But a rough estimate, out of 8 billion people that we're told are on the planet, this is going to sound insane. This is going to sound flabbergasting. People are really going to think I'm a lunatic for what I'm about to say. My personal estimate is that at the top and the bottom, well, at the bottom, right? The people that are still alive, who are the game masters, who have mastered the game, my rough estimate is that there's only a few hundred people that are at this level. Let me explain what I mean by that, right? You got all these fucking stupid conspiracy theorists that say that certain groups are running everything, right? These groups have millions of people, right? Some conspiracy theorists say the Jews are running everything. Some conspiracy theorists say the Freemasons are running everything. Some people say that specific orders are running everything. And some of these groups have millions of people. Some of these groups have thousands of people. What you guys have to understand is that the game masters understand two of nature's ultimate tools, silence and secrecy. The more people that know about a secret, the harder it is to keep that secret a secret. Now, criminals that break the law fall into one of two categories. You got the ones that don't get caught for their crimes, and you got the ones that do get caught for their crimes. When you analyze the data over a large macro sample size, I'm talking millions upon billions of cases, a common variable that you see among criminals that get caught is that the majority of them, above 51%, had somebody else tell on them because they committed the crime with other people. And even though that was supposed to be kept a secret, because they let other people in on what they did, that secret stopped becoming a secret. And that's just with crime. Now, put that on a bigger scale, right? When it comes to what we're talking about, right? How the fuck would the game masters be at the level that they are and still remain hidden to most of society if millions of people were in on the secret? People are human, man. If they have an incentive to leak the secret to either make more money or to get a bigger following or to boost their own ego, they will. This is why the vast majority of people that are observed, they're already disqualified from being told the truth anyways, because most of y'all can't keep a secret, to be blunt. You know what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, right, if you have to be told the truth in the first place, then it's probably not for you anyways. So the main reason I estimate that out of billions of human beings, only a few hundred are at the game master level is because if there was any more than that at that level, then secrets wouldn't be kept a secret and the whole game would just implode on itself anyways. Now you got a lot of people on the internet that make breakthrough videos that are fucking right. But at the end of the day, man, almost nobody gets it. And then we're going to move on to the next tier, right? Because I said in the previous video that the gap between S and A is bigger than the gap between A and D. But A tier is like the minimal level to where you finally get it. But even at this tier, I estimate that less than 0.001% of humanity gets it. So we're going to break down the math, right? If the world really has 8 billion people, a rough estimate, let's take 8 billion. What's 1% of 8 billion? So divide that by 10, you get 800 million. Divide that by 10 again, you get 80 million. That's 1%, right? So to get to 0.1%, divide that by 10, that's 8 million. To get to 0.01%, you get 800,000, then you get 80,000, then you get 8,000. I estimate that it's only a couple thousand people that are at the A tier, and to be perfectly honest, even that sounds like it's too much. You may need to add another zero to that behind that decimal, because similar to S tier, man, it gets to the point where when you reach a certain level, it's utterly incomprehensible to people below the A tier. It gets to a level to where you're basically totally isolated. Most of the world will think you're crazy, and the only other people that can relate to your experiences, to what you verified in real life, is other people that have verified what you've experienced in real life, right? And it just gets to the point where even though you want to tell regular people some of the shit you've seen, some of the things you verified, you know that it would do them no good in the end. You know, I've had girlfriends that I told the truth to, and I got many videos talking about this. You can't take weak energy and try to make it strong. Those of y'all that want to start families, you have to find a unicorn. You have to take somebody that's already strong, somebody that already gets it, and then work together with them to make sure your children get it. You know what I'm saying? So it is what it is. And this is, I mean, this is kind of why, you know, knowledge is withheld from people in the first place, because not everybody can handle that isolation, right? A lot of people want to be popular. Not everybody can handle the fact that if they live a very long time, outside of their own family and outside of their own close friends who also get it, they're probably only going to come across a couple hundred people at the most that can ever relate to them, right? And it takes extreme strength and extreme perseverance to even get to the A tier, and this strength is by no means common, right? Most people will fail. And the main reason most people will fail is because the game is fucking perfected, man. Well, let me not say perfected, but then again, no, here's the thing, right? Perfection has flaws. The universe is naturally flawed. That's what makes it perfect. This game was designed with a lot of exploits so that people at the A tier level can see through the cracks and find the truth on their own. Because you have to understand, guys, you can't just completely extinguish the truth, because that has natural consequences. So when this game was designed, the truth was still put in your face, but it was hidden so close to your eyeballs that you won't be able to hone into it until it's too late, for the most part. The people that are able to see the truth that's hidden directly in their face, I estimate that makes up less than 0.001% of humanity. I know these numbers sound astronomically small, but the more you learn, the more you verify in real life, the more you go straight to the source and observe nature, the more you realize that most people, not only do they not get it, but they never will get it. The gap between S and A tier is bigger than the gap between A and D tier, but the gap between A and B tier is already enormous. So covering the next tier, B tier is where I estimate the top 10% of regular humans are, right? These are the most visible geniuses. I say most visible geniuses because these people have reached a level of intellect to where it's clear they're above a regular person, but they're not so above a regular person that what they're saying seems like insanity. Regular people can still relate somewhat to what these men will say, but it won't be so beyond their scope that it sounds impossible, that it sounds like insanity, right? These are usually the idols put before you for you to worship, right? You know, celebrities, military leaders that have reached legendary status, geniuses, great inventors, you know, great philosophers, basically the people that a lot of you guys look up to. People that you guys think are at the absolute top, and this is like the maximum that a living human being can get to. You know, this is like the limit of knowledge, right? The A and S tiers, the shit that these people know, Regular people have been tricked into believing that only gods know this, that only deities know this, and or they've been tricked into believing that you have to die first in order to obtain this knowledge. That's why one of the S tiers is right here, because yeah, if you die, you will see the truth with your own eyes, but by that point, the truth can no longer help you. So B tier is where most regular people can ever hope to get to, right? And even getting to this level will take a regular person decades, and this is usually where people will die. This is like the peak of most humanity, right? It takes extreme strength to get to the A tier, and this strength is not common at all. A lot of people that have this strength in their youth, they will unfortunately die long before it ever gets realized. You know, you have to survive. You have to be strong, you have to survive, and you have to learn the truth at a young age. And then you need to spend a couple of decades living in harmony with the truth before you fully get to the A tier level. And even then, you're still at the bottom of the A tier level. The people that are the game masters, you guys don't understand. They've been around for a very long time. They would have had to have been for the game that they've created called modern society in order for it to be this perfected. Like, you guys that don't get it, y'all don't understand how deep this goes. And to be perfectly honest, that's probably for the better, because I think there's already too much information out there and it overwhelms people, right? The sheeple, they have access to so much information that their brains can't even comprehend and register, that it just throws them in an infinite narcissistic confusion loop to where they become even more screwed than they were before. And I think that's done on purpose, man. You know, in the past, all knowledge was restricted, all knowledge was hidden, and the negative consequence of that is that your cattle were limited in what they could do for you. So now we live in a society, and I'm going to break this down in my book, Cattle Farm. No, you can't buy it. I'm only giving that book to very specific people. But what has been done in modern society is that you have some farms that breed people to be B tier just so they can be more effective slaves, just so they can make more effective computers, more effective tanks, better AI programming. So they rise to the most visible genius tier so that they become better slaves for the bigger part of the game, okay? And for people that get to this tier, they usually think they know everything there is to know in life. They usually think they've mastered it because that next tier is hidden from them. And there's groups that will approach you that will promise that they can get you to the top of the pyramid, but what they do is that they get you right to B tier, and that's as far as you go, because that next tier of knowledge is kept hidden from you. So after breaking down the first three tiers, we've only covered 10% of humanity. Now, I covered the bottom 25% of society because unfortunately there's more retarded people than there are geniuses, right? It's just the way the game was designed. Now, people at the D tier, they're really fucked because they've usually been born with some type of mental impairity that permanently restricts their ability to learn. Now, 100% of these mental impairments are curable, but this is what's so fucked about it, because usually only the people at the A tier level know how to cure these mental impairments. And I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's very improbable. Me personally, I've met over 10,000 people in my life, okay? And keep in mind, I'm 30 years old. That number is going to increase tenfold as I get older, right? Me personally, I've seen a few D tiers rise to B tier, but I've never encountered anybody that's D tier that rises to A tier or S tier. It's very improbable. And the main reason for this is because you guys got to understand, man, these mental impairments are strong. If you've ever met anybody that has autism, Asperger's, Down syndrome, mental retardation, or if they're born with like a part of their brain missing, or if they have these impairments bestowed upon them as they get older in life due to all the poisons we're surrounded by, These diseases are powerful. And it takes extreme strength to conquer these mental impurities in order to get to C, B, and A tier. And again, that strength is not common, right? I call this the narcissistic loop because let's say somebody was born with narcissism, right? Narcissists have an inability to ever admit to being wrong, to ever admit to being flawed, to ever admit into their mistakes. People that don't get it call me a narcissist when I probably have more videos on YouTube, showing my flaws, showing my weaknesses, admitting to being wrong than any of the people that criticize me. So there's what it is. But I call it the narcissistic loop because if you can't admit to being wrong, if you can't admit to being flawed, if you can't admit that there's a tier of knowledge above you, how the fuck can you obtain the knowledge above you if you don't think there's knowledge above you? That's why it's called the narcissistic loop. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible for a narcissist to cure their mental impairity and get to the C, B, and A tiers, but to get to the A tier, when you have narcissism, is very improbable, right? So now that we've covered the bottom of society, people that are basically born with some type of impairity that makes them even more retarded than the average cattle, let's talk about the average cattle. The average cattle is exactly what it sounds like. The average person walking around, and everybody knows by now that the average person is stupid. The average person in 2024, they can't even tie their own shoelaces. The average person in 2024, they can't even tell the difference between a man and a woman. Now keep in mind, average just refers to the average human being out of how many people are alive at that specific moment in time. Was there a point in time where the average person was a genius? Maybe. I think that's very improbable because not everybody can be a lion. Not every animal in the jungle can be a tiger or a lion or a fucking gorilla. You're going to have predators and you're going to have prey, and there's always going to be way more prey than there is predators, otherwise the natural ecosystem gets disrupted. So was it possible that everybody at one point was a genius? Maybe when there was only 5 human beings on the planet, sure. But when we started getting to 1 million, when we started getting to 1 billion, come on, man. Because what happens is that the original humans, they may continue to obtain knowledge because they lived in an era where if you didn't have knowledge, you died. But as the human population continued to grow and as life became easier for the future generations don't have that obsession for knowledge because they didn't need the same level of knowledge in order to survive. In 2024, for example, you can be a talentless loser, you can be homeless, and still have a very high chance of surviving. That's how easy society has become in order for you to survive. Now, if you play life on easy mode, you're going to be restricted to the level of knowledge you get to. But that's just how the cookie crumbles, man. As society gets more advanced and as you need less knowledge to get the same results as your predecessors, as your ancestors, there's going to be less of a drive to learn what you don't already know. The original humans that eventually became the game master, they lived in a completely different environment. They had to learn what they needed. They had to learn what they learned in order to get to the position that they got to way back then. They had that obsession and drive because they needed to. Humans nowadays, unless they already know the truth and unless they already know the end game consequences of being retarded, there is no drive. And by the time some of these people learn the truth, they just give up anyway, so it doesn't even matter. Nonetheless, this category represents what I estimate to be at least 70% of humanity. Most people are stupid. Most people are hopeless. Most people are helpless. And the interesting thing about each of these classes is that you're usually born into this class. You know what I'm saying? People that are S tier nowadays, they're usually born into it. If you were born into a game master family, you have a much higher chance of becoming a game master yourself. If you were born to A tier parents, you have a much higher chance of being A tier yourself, even if your initial drive to get that knowledge is lower. You were born in a position to where you see certain things at a young age that it would take a regular person 100 years just to see. Likewise, if you were born to an average family, then that's probably where you're going to stay, because that's the only experience that you see for the time being. And most people are a product of their environment. Now, you can rise above your station, but it's very improbable. The odds are stacked against you from day one, and it's much easier to fall to a lesser class than it is to rise to a higher one. So, with that being said, I think I've covered what I needed to cover. I think I more than gave a thorough breakdown of this chart. For you people that are going to come to my shit talking about your S tier, you're not. I don't even claim to be S tier. Like, come on, man. Like, the chances of anybody commenting on this video that they're one of the, and I'm not even going to say one of the original game masters, because there's probably have been some new game masters in recent history. You would never know about them though. But the chances that anybody that's going to see this video and leave a comment is already a game master, slim to none, man. So there's a couple of people that have been commenting that get it. And keep in mind too, man, my channel is small, right? My videos get a couple hundred views per video out of 8 billion people, because most people don't even want to learn about this type of knowledge in the first place. That's how stacked the odds are against you. Most of your fellow man doesn't care to get on this level, and a lot of the ones that do care to get on this level, they're still going to fail, man. You need strength that most people don't have to get to the A tier level, and you have to fully accept that most people will see you as insane. And the people that don't see you as insane, that know you're telling the truth, they're going to try to bring you down because they're envious and they don't like the fact that you somehow learn what they could never learn in 1,000 years. We call that the crab in the bucket mentality. Nonetheless, my inner voice is telling me that I'm beginning to say too much, so I'm going to end the video here. Likewise, like always, if you have any disagreements, type it in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.